We are in the process of building our own natural home. We started out by creating a rocky foundation and then a wooden frame with a metal roof. The walls are made out of natural materials like strips of wood, earth, sand, and straw. More specifically, we built the walls with a method called kincha, which is common in the mountains of South America where Jonah and I live. Over the kincha, we are currently adding a layer of natural plaster. You might be wondering, why build walls out of mud? Won't the walls deteriorate with time? Isn't this an old, outdated way of building? I want to answer all of these questions and more in this video. First and foremost, kincha is a tried and true method in this part of South America. And in other places in the world, there is an equally popular technique you might be familiar with called wattle and daub. With either kincha or wattle and daub, the idea is to create a structure with some sort of fiber. It might be strips of wood, or else bamboo or cane, or even willow branches. Then you fill in and around that structure with a mixture of mud and straw. I'm not from South America. My partner, Jonah, is though, and it seemed right to use a technique local to the area that has proved the test of time and is well adapted to the local climate as well as the materials available here. We also added a contemporary element and combined this ancestral method of building with modern materials like wood from the lumber yard and also an insulated metal roof, double pane windows, and some very solid doors. We chose to build a house that has a structure independent of the walls. In other words, the roof is held up by the wood frame rather than the walls themselves, though they do add a lot of structure to the house. And we hired a builder who is familiar with natural building to do it. This was a way to really get the ball rolling on the build. There are other techniques like cob where you build the walls first and then put the roof on top of it. Cob walls need to be really thick in order to hold such a weight. And in this climate, it rains a lot and is also super sunny, so the roof protects us from the elements while we're building, as well as the walls. Rock walls will do fine without protection from storms. Any kind of earthen walls, though, need a roof, ideally a roof with extra overhang. That is what maintains the walls for decades, even hundreds of years. There are some really, really old earthen buildings all over the world, and as long as the roof is intact and the walls well made, they will be preserved. While the natural materials of these kincha walls need a bit more protection than if they were made of cement or bricks, there are also a lot of benefits to building earthen walls. What initially attracted me to natural building is the ecological factor. Drywall, cement, and latex paint are not the most sustainable materials to source. I'm not here to demonize any of these building supplies. We actually use cement in different parts of the build, in addition to rocks for the foundation, and also one of the walls is made of cement and rocks where the kitchen will eventually go. During our travels, we saw a lot of mountains and waterways destroyed by the cement-making industry. But it's also an ingredient to building modern, sturdy structures. So we chose to use a minimal amount of cement and then source as much of the other materials as possible from nearby. We have fluctuated between sourcing materials from our acre of land in the creek or else ordering them from a nearby area. Things like earth, sand, straw, manure, and prickly pear juice are all easy to find in this area and pretty much anywhere on Earth without destroying the local habitat to use them. And then there is the thermal benefit of earthen walls. Walls made of densely packed earth, sand, and straw will maintain a constant temperature throughout the seasons, instead of letting all the heat inside in summer and all the cold in winter. These walls are also more soundproof than walls made of drywall or wood. Even in this rural area, there are a lot of random sounds from neighbors. Mostly cute animal sounds like goats calling out to one another, but there's also a dog who barks throughout the day, the sound of power tools like chainsaws, weed whackers, and the passing motorcycles. It isn't really a big deal to hear those things, but when we go inside and hear only ourselves, it's so peaceful. And then there's my last reason, that unlike conventional builds, building with kincha is something that anyone can do. It helped that we were both familiar with natural building from our years traveling around, helping out in a variety of natural builds. But it wasn't a steep learning curve to pick up these skills. We even had a couple of work parties where totally unexperienced kids helped out, and since then have hired a friend to help with the plastering who had no previous building experience at all. It is obviously important to do a good job and follow the methods that have worked for all the people who have built this way before. It is key to make the right proportions for the mix and really fill in the walls with the muddy straw and let the kincha dry before moving on to the plastering. And when plastering is concerned, it is important to find the right proportions for the natural ingredients available, which will be slightly different for each build. The materials used in natural building are also more forgiving. Cement, for example, needs to be used right away after it has been mixed because it dries so quickly. When working with filling for the kincha walls, and now with the plastering, we can work at our pace. Sometimes we make a mix that will be used right away. Other times we make a mix that we use slowly over the course of a few days and simply add a bit of water if it is dried out. Any plaster that falls on the ground can be recycled simply by adding it to the next batch. It's just earth, sand, and straw, so we can work without masks, without eye protection, and without worrying about the health effects of coming into contact with the plaster. Not only is it kinder to our health, but also working with dirt, sand, and straw is a lot cheaper than working with industrialized materials. Buying bag after bag of cement or bricks or paint really adds up. We chose to build a 2-room house with plenty of room for storage, but we could have gone even smaller and built a 1-room building with plans to continue on later when time or funds permit. Natural building lends itself to DIY builds, or a slower pace than other types of buildings, just as long as the walls are protected from the elements throughout. There is so much left to do before we can call this building our home. The windows and the doors are in place, and we are currently finishing the first round of plastering indoors. Thanks so much for watching and following along in our natural building journey. And as always, happy crafting!